Okay, so I just want to talk about the final build out of the structure, the structural. Somebody mentioned in the last upload two really good questions. They said, how do you know, what part should be structural and what part is the model as it pertains to wood and plastic? Well, those are two great questions, and you have to decide that as the modeler. Like, because it's sort of about solving problems in a creative way, you know, independently. You know, like you can read books and watch videos and learn and glean from them, but you know, you're going to have to figure out when you scratch build from photos and napkin drawings how you're going to solve certain issues. Like number one, the structural. Like it's very important, the structural, for your track. Like a lot of people don't think that through enough. I don't think they're in such a rush to get track down and running trains. Like what's the hurry? You know, don't you want a nice layout with trouble-free track and solid roadbed? And you know, that's really important. We don't spend enough time on that. This is obviously like a bridge, right? And you can build a model bridge out of plastic just like the prototype if you really want to, like a show winner type, you know, jury, you know, competition piece, which is great with every rivet, and that's great, and I encourage that if that's where you're at and that's what you want to do. But I've adopted a style like this where it's a structural wood and then facade. A lot of, like, you'll know from Glover Road, like, you know, the sort of the facade approach to models. Like I don't count the rivets anymore. I don't do that kind of modeling because I don't think it's necessary. At least it's not for me. And they still look really good at the end of the day, right? But what's important to me that the track and the structure is stable. The substrate, because this is part of the substrate. Substrate meaning everything from the plywood or the spline roadbed up to the rail. Because if you're hand laying ties, that's also substrate on whatever sub roadbed you use. And then you lay the rail on top. But in this case, I'll be using flex track and some hand laying down the road. But so here's the concrete blocks with the piles, remember? Upside down. And then there are these maple stringers that I ran, right? Okay. And I glued them and pinned them from the other side of the plywood with a brad nailer with just short 1/2 inch or 3/8 brads. Just every, you know, 4 inches or so with glue, and that's as solid as can be. And then all I did with these concrete supports is I just glued them to these rails here, right, with carpenter glue. That's it. Like I didn't pin them or nothing. Like they're not coming off. Like maple loves glue, you know, especially with the weather that we're having. But anyway, so this is very solid, and it's going to be pulled down where this end block here is rabbited, and it's very secure. So these just need to float really, and then this will be glued and pinned. This rail, I'll show you. This gets notched, see, and then it slips in there. So this notch pulls this block down to the surface of the water. I'll just call it the water, the surface of the river, which is 1/4 inch plywood, right, on the frame. And then in the same manner, I'm going to use these maple rails I cut that are going to go in here, and then you can see this reveal here, which is 5/32 or 4 mm. Okay, this is where the facade and or the girders, the steel work, I'm going to build up nice, right? Because that's what's going to show. And they're going to drop in here with the flanges and run flush to the edge here. So they'll tuck in there nice. I can tack glue them to this rail with anything, right? With canopy glue or, you know, CA, epoxy, whatever. And then this center spline is going to be, there'll be a hole drilled here and just tapped out. And then there'll be a hole right here tapped out. So that's going to suck the whole ramp level down onto the surface. And then I'm going to tap here and here as well. So 4 screws or bolts that'll suck the model down to the base. So I can remove it if I want, if I have to. I mean, I'm going to try to, you know, build it in such a systematic way that I can just build it all out, paint it, and then just drop it in place. But I'll do a couple of dry runs to make sure it all fits and everything. And then you can see here at the end of this rail, I cut a notch through here on the table saw, you know, just by clamping it to the push rail, you know, just a simple jig style. And I cut that like this for a reason, because at the end of the ramp, like right here. This is upside down, right? So there's going to be 3 girders, like they're all the same, except I'm not going to run the plastic girder as a structural down here because this is structural. But I'm going to see, like you'll be able to see a ways 3 or 4 inches into the front of the ramp, where from that angle. So I want to model at least the center one because there is a center one running on the prototype, and then the 2 outside ones, which explains why these rails will only go so far as well, because it probably wouldn't be like that anyway. But that's part of the structural, if that answers that question. And then the actual model is like a facade. It's all what you'll see attached and with different methods to the outside of the structure. And then since we're here with this, which once this is done, okay, I'm going to start building out the whole ramp. I got the towers on the go. Those are separate models, and then some of the piles. But this bridge, like the girders are going to lay in this rabbeted reveal right here that runs all the way along. See, and they're going to get attached right in here, the long narrow one. And then another feature on the model is the ties, like the bridge ties, which are going to sit just on top of this. Okay, so I just want to address the side of the ties. If you see in this photo right here, there's these heavier bridge ties, which are heavier than standard rail ties, right? By a hefty amount. And I don't know what the exact dimensions are, but I'll figure that out. So you can see that you only see the ends of them, and there's a big heavy beam on top of it, and then another even heavier beam where the posts and rails run. Okay. So how am I going to simulate all those ties? They run all the way down the whole structure. Well, I'm just going to use this novelty right here. I might get the next larger one than this. Like seems to be good, but anyway, I'll get the next size spacing a little bit larger than this. This is 4109. I think it'll work. So what I'll do is I'll just cut strips to lay on top of this section right here, a little bit above it, and just cut strips, right? You know what I mean? And then lay them on all the way down, and that'll simulate, this effect. Because I'm not going to cut, individual ties here, 1,000 of them, and then glue them spaced apart. I mean, there's ways you can do that. I would maybe in O scale. I would actually probably build these out with wood with ties, but this is HO and there's no need for it. And then the ones on the ramp are deeper, so I'll just cut a wider strip for those. Okay. Okay, so the deck of the ramp and approach. So we can see, let me just move these off. So I'm getting there. The main structure is almost finished. So this is all glued in and pinned. So I can hang my steel girder facades on here. It's pretty much ready for dress, except for this area up here, and I'll show you what I've done, because according to the photo, you can see this form here, this center block. Okay, see how the ties come? Wow, I mean, what would that be in a model? Approximately 1/4 inch or 5/16 or something. So that's this part, right? This part here is right here. So what I've done there is rather than pack it out with more expensive evergreen plastic, because you want to save $5 here, $5 there every linear foot, right? It all adds up in the end. It might end up adding up to a Genesis locomotive. Collectively, you're not keeping track, and if you really go count through all your receipts, right? Oh my goodness, I could have bought 2 MU-9s, But anyway, so I cut some 1/4 inch, the same thickness as the cork here that I'm going to line this bed with. Or all my road bed's going to be on 3/8 with 1/4 inch cork. And in this case, the spline is maple, right? So the spline work in this is actually more of a horizontal nature than a vertical, the old way. It's really the same, one and the same. It's just that we have probably a better selection of wood now. But you know, normally it would be a lot of splines of MDF together and then particle board. Like, it was really great, especially for curves. But you know, we can build on plywood too. But okay, so in this case, I cut this piece, this 1/4 inch maple, and then I notched it right here. See? So that just slides in like that, and then that'll get glued. So the point of this is that this, see that? So it comes out, so the ties, so you look at the ties here. Actually, the ties here. Okay, see the ties? Just above the steel girder. Well, that's this section here. So I'm going to pack that out with just a piece of plastic probably. Or even I can use right angle. Just do epoxy on, so I got plastic to glue onto when I glue my simulated railway tie ends. And then this here will be simulating this section here, which I'm using for maple. And then there's a big heavy beam. Man, that's a big beam there. I would say that beam's 14 inches. 12 to 14 inches. But anyway, that's going to be a planton made of plastic, okay, on top of this. That way, when I glue all the railings, I can weld all these I-beam railings to plastic instead of wood, okay? And then I'll just scribe all this like I did the fence on Glover Road. Like, I'll show that again. I'm just going to scribe this with a razor saw and weather it and distress it. And then paint and put washes on it. It'll look just like wood. Okay, so here's a quick little modeler's tip. So as you can see here, I'm putting the facade now. I'm dressing the wood substructure. So I'm going to put this trim along here. I'll explain later why, and you'll see when it develops further. But I want to run this core here, this 100 by 80 thou core inside this right angle. Like that, see? So it sits here nice, and then there's a little bit of a gap under here. So when I slide my decking, it'll tuck in underneath. But anyway, so I've got to add some pieces together because I want to do a full run, right, across this core. So I want to square up these ends. And they don't usually come square out of the package, and then you're going to have to square them anyway. Okay, so what I do is I take a couple of my sanding sticks. Remember how I showed how to make these out of plywood? In this case, it's 3/8/7 ply. It's straight as an arrow, this stuff, especially in short pieces. I just lay it on here like this. Just hold it with my finger because it's not going to slide anywhere because of the sandpaper on it, right? Okay, I just hang it over just a little bit there. And all I do is square it up to the end. You know, like as long as these sticks are cut square. A couple of strokes, and it's perfectly square. And then when you go to glue it and merge it, it's almost seamless, you know? Okay? Okay, so dressing the barge slip, right? So what I mean by that is applying the plastic, the evergreen plastic, to the maple wood and plywood core. So you can see here, there's the plywood slab running through. This is track bed, right, as I mentioned earlier. Then all these concrete abutments are all made from maple. This is a solid maple spline. You know, I just bought a plank, right, cut up lots of wood. The rails here are also spline. And then there's these rails here, maple, 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 maple. It's all maple except for this is a Baltic birch 3/8/7 ply. So this is almost a bulletproof structure. Like, you can hit this thing with a ball peen hammer and it's not going to do anything. It's just, you know, it's got a little bit of weight to it too. But I like to build models this way, especially bridge structures. I've always done it this way. Just build them solid, build them to last, right? If you ever take your layout down, you get to keep the model, right? So you want to be able to yank the model off the layout. The rest of the layout caves, right? But the bridge doesn't. You know, the whole layout comes down, the bridge is left standing. But anyway, so Yeah, so what I did was I'm packing out this profile because what I want here, this is very important to me. You notice it's a little bit different, it's a little bit deeper here with this here, this channel. Um, it's all over my desk here, all this material. Let's see. I think I used this rectangle tube to pack out this part here because I got to put a tie-in profile here, just like here, see? So there's 3 layers of wood here. There's the deep ties on the ramp. This is the ramp, the approach is over here. There's these deep railway ties, you know, there's 1,000 of them, right? And then there's this beam in here, which is actually maple. It's part of this slab here that I used, which is a 1/4 inch thick that I attached on, and then the same height. So when I glued the cork in now, which I did as well, it's nice and flush here, right? And it comes up against this beam, which is this black beam right here. This part here that you see right here, this maple showing through, that's this beam right here, which I'll describe. Like, this is all going to be wood, so I'm going to distress this wood with a razor saw, okay? Like this. This is how I like to do. Like, I used to use wood all the time when I was in O-scale, but I converted over to plastic. Plastic is, I don't know, man. I like using plastic now, you know, for my own reasons, I guess. But so I can distress this like this, right? And I can carve and put, you know, knot holes in it and a section like that. I can use a different razor saw tooth just to change the grain up a bit. And then once that gets painted and a wash goes on, it looks really good. You can make plastic look as good as real wood easily with washes and filters and whatever. It's 2 or 3 applications. You know, paint it flesh color or tan or buff and then throw a couple of umber washes on it. It looks really good. So that's the profile I've been working there. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to attach, like I showed you, I might as well pull this out and show you how I'm going to do the deck as well, right? Okay. See this sheet here? This is like they're at least 2 by 12 planks. They look even wider in the photos. So this is going to get cut, like once I lay the track on, like this. Okay, there'll be 3 pieces of tangent on here. And then I'm going to cut the strips and run the whole sheet down the whole piece. I'm not going to lay individual planks, no way. I'm going to have fun painting this too, because that's the part I really like to do. So that's going to lay against the rail like that. That's how I'm going to bury the rail. And then the other side of this is going to slip underneath there, see? Or up against it flush. If I need to pack this out, I still can a little bit. So that's how I'm going to do the deck. And then when I'm going to do the edge of the ties, I have another profile. I'm going to cut a strip. Right, I think I mentioned this, like a narrow strip. And I'm just going to glue it right onto this section right here. So it'll look just like all these ties here. And I can pick a few out differently. And then I got to run some other beams out for the lamp standards. But it's a lot of fun. This actual project is turning out to be a lot of fun, and I like the way how solid it's become. Can you see the edge of the profile there a bit? You wouldn't believe how much lighting I have here right now. I'm just cooking. You know, it's a problem with studio lighting. Oh, okay, so now I mentioned studio lighting. Why does he build it out of solid wood like that and then plastic? Well, I'll tell you why, because this is the way I was trained in film. And you want to know why we built this way? Because the lights would melt a model. That's how hot it was. You can never have enough lighting for production, especially for miniatures. Like, it would get so hot. Like, even the plastic that's glued onto it would be stable though because it's supported on the wood, but the wood would just absorb the heat. Actually, a lot of models back in the Star Wars days, they had to put little mini air conditioning vents in them and stuff, so they wouldn't melt and warp. But anyway, that's just kind of the reason why I build heavy, because I'm just used to doing it that way and used to working with wood. And you save a lot of money. If you were to build this out with all evergreen plastic, it would cost 5 times the money or more. And it would be a lot more work too. Right? But if you wanted to build on spec, right, just like the real bridge, and that's fun too, well then you'd probably build it all out of plastic. But in this case, I'm not going to. You won't be able to tell anyway. So that's that stage right now. It'd be nice smooth too with the cork there in the track, and it'll just be nice and quiet. Now, just this paint part I'll just mention too, just in closing. What I do is I paint the maple, the wood that I use first with gesso, essential gesso. This is the cheaper stuff. I get it from Art Supply. I don't buy the golden, but I do buy all the other golden products, but I just don't buy their gesso because it's all the same to me. But it's very opaque and it has interesting texture to it. It's just it covers really well. It's super tough. It'll handle oil, solvent, water, alcohol, acrylic, anything. Okay, it's what artists put on canvases, so I'm pretty familiar with this from way back. And then for the texturing on the concrete, I use this. I love this. Okay, just let me say this in closing now. Every modeler should have a tub of this in their kit by Golden Fiber Paste. Okay, it's a little pricey. It's about 20 bucks or so, but it's worth every penny. Man, if you want to do foundations on bridges, abutments, foundations on buildings, roads, this stuff is just, oh, I love it, man. I mean, it's, here, look at it. See, it's this beautiful, oh, it's great. I mean, I do my trees, the bark on my trees with this. Like, I use it for everything. You can water it down, too. And you can move it around. You can paint it on, like stipple it on. And then just stroke it across. Oh, you can do so much. Every modeler that loves to model like this needs a tub of this on hand. So that's what I did for these concrete pieces, okay? So I just paint it with gesso, like this will be next. Just white gesso by brush. Stab it all in, gesso, get a good primer on it. And then I'm going to take some of this here and stroke it down. Stab some of this on and then just wipe it away. And then if I want to clean up the edges here, the bevels, just wait a day and then just stroke it a couple of times. Right? And it'll sharpen these bevels up, you know, from the forms. And you'll have a beautiful texture, real fine for HO scale and O scale as well. Yeah, okay. Cheers.